and in today's video I actually have kind of like my updated foundation routine. I'm showing you how I cream and contour, how I set my face to make sure that my foundation and stuff lasts all night long. This is definitely a full coverage look and definitely more appropriate for like clubbing, or if you have like a special event to go to, or if you just want your skin to look really highly flawless and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and film a tutorial with the Huda Beauty eyeshadow palette, which will be a separate video, so if that's up already I'll leave it down below. So if you're interested in any of the products that I use, everything will be down below as usual. And yeah, I love you guys and I will see you soon. So because I would have kind of more normal to dry skin, I love my skin being really hydrated and really kind of moisturized and stuff before I do my foundation. I have already applied my moisturizer, but I also like to kind of apply additional products just to make sure my skin is really highly hydrated and really moisturized. This product here is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base, and this is sort of like a primer, and this is so good if you have kind of dry skin. And I feel like if you would have oily skin, this would work well too, because it's kind of like a gel, so it's not like really intensely oily. So what I do is I really just kind of work this into my skin and also under my eyes as well, and it kind of works as like a little eye base too. So for my actual foundation, I've really been loving the Makeup Forever HD Stick Foundations. I know these work really well for my skin. They provide amazing coverage and they don't dry out my skin and they last all night long. And I take a mix between these two shades right here if anybody is interested. And as you can see, my neck is a lot darker than my face, so I do use foundations that are slightly, well, kind of like a lot darker actually than my actual face, because obviously I want my face to be the same shade as my neck and stuff. So I apply a little bit of that one, and then I also take this one here, which is the 128 shade, and just apply that on top. And then to actually buff in my foundation, I use the Zoeva 102 Silk Finish, or either I would use the angled kabuki brush from Sigma as well. And what I do is I just kind of dab it onto my skin. Dab. So I literally just kind of press it into my skin first of all, just to kind of spread out the product, and then what I do after is I go in with my beauty blender just to soak up any excess product and just to make sure that it's all kind of really settled well into my skin. And as you can see now, my face kind of matches my neck a lot more. And then as I mentioned, I take my beauty blender and just kind of spray some fixing spray on it just to dampen it a wee bit. And then what I do with this is literally just go over my entire face with the sponge, and this will just soak up any excess product and just make sure that your skin looks as natural as what it can be, even though this is not like a natural look whatsoever. So for my concealer at the moment, I've been taking a mix between the Urban Decay Naked Skin. This will probably be always one of my favourite concealers. Mine is in the shade Fair Neutral. And then I also have the Maybelline Fit Me, and this is definitely one of my favourite drugstore concealers. So what I do with the Urban Decay one is I pretty much just place like a few dots of it under my eyes just to kind of highlight. I use two concealers because this one is very pale for my skin, so I like to use that kind of more as like a highlighting colour. And then I take the Maybelline one and put that just directly underneath, and that kind of just balances out a little bit and doesn't make it look as like really intense. So by the time you blend them out, it kind of all the colours merge together and it doesn't look too bad. So what I do is I just place that underneath and around, and then I just go ahead and blend that in again. And then because this is a more kind of dramatic makeup look, what I do is I go in with my iconic London Creamy Contour Kit, and this is definitely one of the favourite ones that I've ever tried. I've absolutely been loving it. I got it a few weeks ago and I've been using it every time I've been doing my makeup since, because it's just so creamy and the shades are really good because they're not too warm, so they do look a little bit more natural in the skin and they blend amazingly. So again, I will have the link to this down below if you're interested. So what I do is I take a mix between these two shades here, and then what I do is I pretty much use whatever's on my brush just to kind of sculpt out my cheekbones. And then this is just going to act as kind of like a base for my powder products. And again, if you're not really into like heavy dramatic makeup, this is definitely not for you, because there is a lot of product kind of going onto my skin. So if you don't like dramatic makeup, I wouldn't recommend doing like all these steps. Then whenever I have that done, what I do is I pretty much just clean off the excess of what is on my foundation brush, and then I use that brush just to kind of buff this into my skin. Cream products are a lot heavier on the skin, but sometimes they do look a little bit more natural because you can kind of get them to kind of almost melt into your skin, whereas powders kind of just sit on top of your skin. So cream product can look a little bit more natural, but because I'm applying like so much of it, it doesn't really look that natural. And then again, to make sure that's completely blended into my skin, I go back in with my sponge and just really press it into my hairline and stuff, just to make sure there's no like visible like harsh lines or anything. So what I'm going to do is set my under eyes and kind of set my skin and make sure that my makeup doesn't budge all day long. I'm going to be using my Mercier loose setting powder. And whenever I first got this, I hated it. Like, I did not see what the craze was, but I've recently really been getting into it. And the reason why I didn't like it at the start is because people were saying that it was kind of brightening their under eyes, and whenever I used it, it seemed to kind of darken it, and I was like, what the hell, why is this like darkening my under eyes? But the more you kind of let it sit and kind of bake onto your skin, it does kind of give a more brightening effect. So what I do is I pretty much bake with this, just kind of put it under where I did all my highlighting work, and then swipe it off kind of after a couple of more steps of my makeup, and then I have like a nice bright area. So if you're finding this doesn't really work well for you, I would try what I'm going to do now, just to see if it works better, because the way that I do it now, like, I love it so much better than what I used to do. So yeah. So pretty much what I do is I just take some powder onto my sponge and then just really press this underneath my eyes, and then I also put it on everywhere else that I highlighted as well. And then what I like to do is I like to take some right on the tip of the sponge and then run it along where I contour, just underneath that contour line. And this just gives you a really sharp and defined contour line. And then to set the rest of my skin that I haven't put any powder on yet, I've been using my MAC Studio Fix powder in the NC42. And I just take it on a big fluffy brush and literally just press it into my skin, everywhere where I didn't apply any of the other powder. And then what I'm going to do now is just take a dual fibre brush. Normally I would go in and do my kind of eyebrows and my eyeshadow and stuff. Because of the purpose of the video, I'm just going to kind of focus on my face just all together right now. So what I do is I just go in with like a dual fibre brush and just brush away any of that excess powder that we have sitting on our face. So after I do that, I like to go back in with my setting spray, because as my skin does look quite matte right now, I like my skin to look really dewy. So what I like to do is go in with a setting spray, and that just kind of makes the powder look less powdery on your skin. So to contour my skin, what I've been using is the Jouer bronzer in the shade Suntan, and this is really similar to the Balm's Bahama bronzer in the shade. It's kind of like a matte cool tone brown, but it kind of doesn't look too ashy, so it's kind of more of like a neutral brown colour. And I use the Luxe highlight brush from Zoeva for this one. And then for my actual bronzer, I take my Makeup Forever Pro Bronze Fusion in the shade 351, and I take my big massive powder brush for this. And I just kind of load up my brush, and then what I do is I just kind of sweep this across, kind of just everywhere, like around the perimeter of my face. And then for blush, I pretty much just take any blush that I'm feeling for. This one is the Jouer Peach Bouquet blush. Ooh, oh my god, I near chopped that, oh my god. This is the Peach Bouquet blush by Decay. As I mentioned, it's just like a really nice kind of peachy pink colour. And then for my actual highlighter, I've kind of switched up a little bit. I've been using my custom Cover FX drops from Cover FX. These are the ones in the shade Moonlight. I actually have all shades of these, but like one of them is really pale, and then the other one's like really dark, and then every shade in between is either too light or too dark, and then this one is like the in-between shade. So what I do is I take this, and this is kind of like a base for my highlight. So what I do is I take this, I just put a bit on the back of my hand, literally like the tiniest bit, because you do not need like much of this whatsoever. And what I do is I just take like a little fluffy brush, I just kind of load up the tip of the fluffy brush, and then just apply it like along where I would apply my powder highlight. So that's just obviously along the tops of my cheekbones, and then I kind of like to bring it along around the side of my brow as well. And as you can see, that gives off such a nice kind of natural glow. And then what I do after that is I actually go in with my powder highlight. So now that I've got my base down, the powder just really pops and looks so vibrant. And then for my actual powder highlighter, recently I've been using the Laura Geller Gilded Honey highlighter. And this is like a light kind of champagne gold. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I just take it on a fan brush. I literally just load the F out of this fan brush. And I'm actually going to Snapchat myself doing this right now, because I feel like it's going to really pop. I also like to take the tiniest bit on my nose and then on my upper lip as well. And then whatever's left in the brush, I literally just quickly like swipe it across the centre of my forehead. And that's how I kind of get the dew back into my skin, because I hate my skin looking matte. I just love it looking so radiant. So guys, that's pretty much my kind of full coverage foundation routine that I know that kind of works for my skin and lasts. Like this foundation and stuff lasts so long. If you use these products, the powder and stuff, it literally lasts the entire night. Like I wear this, and if I sleep in it the next day, it pretty much looks the exact same, because all of these products last amazingly on the skin, and because they're all quite high quality as well, they do perform really nicely too. So again, as I mentioned, I will leave the links to everything I use down in the description box below. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and film an eye tutorial using the new Huda Beauty eye texture palette or something. So if it's up already, I'll leave it down below if you're interested, but sneak peek at the palette, look how gorgeous it is. But yeah, so as I mentioned, I will have all the products and stuff down below. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one, guys. Bye!